That was accidental?
Oh, 100%. Like that was just me exploring synthesizers and like finding a community. Part of getting older is not seeing everything as like good and bad. I realized that I had some like entrepreneurial gifts that I didn't know were there. I was feeling the same kinds of things as I was making a business as I was when I was playing music.
What is it about human beings that when we have like kind of a breakthrough moment where you experience music in a deep way that you're like, oh my gosh, I wanted to create that? What is that?
There is just something in us that moves us to imagination. Like we have to utilize our imaginations just as a part of being what we are as human beings. Creativity can't be severed from relationships. I just started making stuff. I just started exploring sound and synthesizers, man. They blew me apart. I couldn't believe what they did.
Some people master one craft. Joel Negus mastered many. I want to know, right, what ties all of them together, and pretty much just understanding how Joel understands creativity and he sees creativity. So, welcome, Joel, to the Creative Odyssey podcast. So glad we finally did this.
Took a minute.
You're a busy man.
Glad to be here with you, man. Glad to be here with you.
So, let's start. What kind of a kid were you growing up?
Okay, so I grew up with two musicians as parents, professional musicians. My dad is a professional woodwind player, session player. Grew up playing on jingles for commercials and TV and radio and stuff like that, and as a performer. Primarily a sax player, but plays all non-double reed woodwind instruments. And then my mom he's also a vocalist. My mom is a vocalist and a choral conductor and music educator. So that's the environment that I grew up in. Have a couple older siblings, both musical as well, and both creatives. Their lives reflect that as well. Honestly, I did do a lot of things growing up, but it was always music. Music was everything that I did. There are definitely different flavors of that throughout my life. It's so I started. Guitar was my first instrument, but
How old were you?
gosh, I should know that. Probably, I think I got my first guitar around 5.
Okay.
6, 7, maybe somewhere in there. But really, my first like real experiences that I remember as a kid were my dad bringing me. I was a boy soprano, so I would sing on a lot of commercials. And my dad owns a studio in Chicago. I grew up in that, and that was so that was attached to our house. It was a composition studio primarily, where he'd be writing there, and then before my voice changed. I sang on a lot of commercials of different, huge brands and stuff like that. So
Really?
yeah, that was a piece of what I was doing when I was a kid. And then other musical experiences were definitely kind of in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. For some reason, a lot of us were very angsty, and we grew up in the punk rock scene, and that was very much where I was for a lot of my childhood. Kind of the punk rock scene that like went from punk rock into like hardcore and metal, and that's by high school. That's where I was very much so. It was a band called Born of Osiris that I was a part of before their name was Born of Osiris, but all those guys, that's who I grew up with, and that was very much my scene then. Your original question was,
What kind of a kid you were?
and I was. Yeah, so it's funny because like I sometimes I've talked about this with my wife. I feel like I didn't really like start using my brain until I was 18. You know what I mean?
At 18, wow, that's advanced, man.
Yeah, right. Well, it's just like, I'm thinking about like what I did, and like playing music was just as natural as it was probably more natural than conversing or thinking deeply about something. I don't know if I can tell you. I know that like a lot of that came from my dad and his just kind of innate ability and on different instruments, and just the way that there's such a natural gifting that he has, that he not only like passed down like through DNA, but also just like he like brought me up in that, where it was like I learned harmony by sitting at a table with my dad after dinner, like playing instruments with him and listening to him and teaching me. You know what I mean? It's like and that was never that wasn't hard. It wasn't. It was just. It was like talking. You know, it's just like a normal piece of what growing up with them was like. And my mom kind of represented like a different side of things, where she had started a children's choir in the Chicago area, and yeah, there was just I can remember those experiences too, of like choral singing like meant a lot to me as well. So it's like, and I feel like my mom had more of like, she obviously had tons of natural gifting as well, but there was more of like, I feel like there were more words that were associated with how she thought about art and beauty than like with my dad. And I feel like most of my life has kind of been more like my dad, where it's just like, I just do it. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not thinking about it as much. It's kind of just what naturally is happening.
You think your mom was a verbal processor versus dad wasn't?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I mean, they certainly both, they're not, neither of them are shy people, but I'd say that, yeah, I think that there's definitely maybe more of an academic like background from my mom, where she spent more time in school and kind of had more of those muscles working, whereas my dad was just like working and doing really well for himself at a very young age, like well before finishing college. And so it's just like it was two very different humans, but both of them cared about art and creativity in different ways. And so yeah, I feel like my childhood years were very much kind of just that like knee jerk or innate kind of just do things, make things, and I think it wasn't until later into my adult years that I started like thinking about why I was doing anything. So.
Wow. What kind of a role did society and culture play for you growing up in that family background?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, I mean, I think I grew up in a time where honestly it's hard to even now compare how I grew up to how people are how kids are growing up now, because it's just like I felt like I grew up in a time where I could hear anything, you know, that like Spotify didn't exist yet,
right?
But it still felt like the world was accessible to me, even growing up in the 90s. I was exposed to a lot of different things. I grew up, you know, depending on what year and what, you know, what my dad, you know, there's a ton of stuff that we were listening to, most of it Earth, Wind and Fire and Stevie Wonder and all of that stuff, or it was, you know, some choral stuff, or, you know, or my brother was kind of probably the reason why I was in that like punk rock and hardcore and metal scenes, because I was just trying to be like my older brother, who's always been cooler than me. And just like, you know, it's like the culture that I grew up in, despite it being like, kind of like, okay, you're in the northwest like suburbs of Chicago. It has, you know, a lot of the houses look the same. A lot of, you know, that's all there. That's all true. But musically, it felt like I was exposed to a lot of different things, and even like the education system that I was a part of. This is what ended up shaping a lot of my life. I didn't start playing my primary instrument, the double bass, upright bass, until I was 15, and that was just school orchestra. Like that was just a class that I could take in high school, and there was, you know, it was incredible to be able to have that kind of an opportunity to get to play an instrument like that, and you know, that's what I ended up going to school for was the double bass performance in double bass. So yeah, it felt like there was a lot of opportunity musically. There's a lot of things that I could explore. And on top of that, like to grow up in a recording environment, home studios are a thing now. They were then, but not very many. Not very many. It was very, barrier to entry was very high back then, and just like my dad, he certainly wasn't the first person to have a home studio, but definitely was an early adopter of that model, and so to grow up recording myself and recording friends and kind of just that was a piece of what I did, and that was a really important piece for me as well. And I had no idea that it was going to shape what I ended up doing later in life. No, recording was never. That was just like a thing that was there. That wasn't the thing that I was thinking I'd be doing anything with.
So what I'm hearing is your childhood, regardless of what was happening around the world or even in the next state, you had this family background unit where music was just part of it, and like it almost feels like you were just in a kind of a bubble doing music.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how you didn't think about future careers and things like that in that, because I'm drawing parallels in the sense that I too, like my father wasn't into it, but he had a friend who did commercial recording. And he was the first guy who recommended me to get my first Cubase and all of those things. There were some issues with latency that I couldn't get figured out, and the guy was so busy I ended up like pausing it down the road. But choral, like I went to a British school that we sang psalms, evensong, and all of that kind of stuff. As a matter of fact, like I find it super like spiritual, those music. And now that I think about some of the music, that Christian music, not that they're not, but like there's something about sacred vocal music that in the right context, it's just like harrowing and like the realness of God and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Like, and then on my end, like even though I was surrounded in a bubble of music, still society was like, yo, you can't do this. Like you have to conform. But I think in a way you didn't have that issue.
I think you're right. Yeah, and honestly, I recognize that as a pretty immense privilege to have two parents that were both professional musicians already. That was like, it was never really a question whether or not it was something I could do or not. That's incredible privilege. So I'll say it straight. Like I know that for sure, and so. And I think it's interesting to be on the other side of that kind of an upbringing, where I think part of getting older is not seeing everything as like good and bad. It's kind of just like that was that way, and it had this effect, and some of those effects were good, and some of those effects were not so good.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of things that I didn't learn that I maybe needed to, where it's like I have like this beautiful freedom, but like I think a lot of like learning how to become an adult was pretty hard in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. And I think that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
My favorite thing is understanding how a person perceived the world at that point, whether it was the right thing or not. What I'm curious is like why and how that happened and how that eventually shaped the person, which is like truly remarkable to me, because that shows the realness of human beings. That's the part that I'm truly fascinated about.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a stupid question, but it's almost like even though you didn't think about your future, it's always like there was a hint that you were going in this direction. Like
it was never going to be anything besides music. Yeah, there were different iterations, of course. Mostly when I was like nearing the end of high school, it was, am I going to be a music educator like my mom? I was a composer. I was composing a lot of choral music in high school. So it was like, that was I thought that was going to be the path for a little while there as well. But yeah, no, I ended up, so the story, I guess, as to how that transition happened for me, of a kid that was playing in this metal band that was pretty successful at the time, honestly. It was an interesting dynamic, because we were so young. 14, 15-year-olds getting dropped off playing venues downtown Chicago, where it's like, can my parents drop us off early so that we're not embarrassed, as though like people around us can't see that we're 14 or 15, it's just like, but we're playing these shows and things are going really well. And up until that point, like all I wanted to do was tour and be in that world, be a part of that scene. And two things happened during high school that really like changed that trajectory. And it was, one, meeting Allison, who's my wife now. We started dating when I was 15 and she was 14 and she was 16. And that kind of just like, for whatever reason, I honestly couldn't explain it to you other than it's just like 14-year-old boy was like ready to marry this girl the next day sort of vibe. It was like, okay, I want a family. Like, I don't want to go on tour anymore. I want to do this. And it was like, it changed everything very drastically. And then the other thing was just like, so basically from that point on for the rest of high school, I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to do then? If I'm not going to be touring, I'm not going to be part of this world. What am I going to do? So I was, it wasn't until the summer before my senior year of high school, I was attending this music camp at Northwestern University that was not far from where I grew up. And I was there for jazz. My dad's a jazz player, and I was doing a bit of that on upright bass at that point. And I heard a pianist named Leon Fleischer and a string quartet, the Orion String Quartet, play the Brahms Piano Quintet in F minor. And it blew my world apart. Like I it's not that I hadn't been exposed to classical music. I had, especially choral singing. But there was something that happened in that performance to me that was just, and like there isn't even a bass in this, in that composition. There's bass, but it's like the way that they played that. I think they did the entire third movement again as an encore. It was just this incredible moment that I remember feeling like I didn't even know that you could do that with classical music. I didn't know that is something that's possible with it. And then that was late summer, going into my senior year. I was like, okay, I'm going to get a classical degree in double bass. And like all I had been doing at that point was playing in the school orchestra. Wow. So it was like, what do I need to do to get into a conservatory? It's like, here's, it was, okay, I need to prepare a solo. You have to play one movement of a concerto. I don't know any concertos. Let's start Googling that. It's like, this is the early days of YouTube, trying to teach myself how to play bass. It was a mess. But, I ended up getting into a few different places. And my teacher here, I ended up going to the Cleveland Institute of Music. My teacher hilariously told me during my senior year, he's just like, I definitely took a risk with you. He's just like, you were a pretty terrible bass player, but you were a really good musician, and I could see that. It's like I could work with that. And he did. He broke me apart my first year, man. I relearned how to play the instrument, but yeah, I mean, thankfully, I was able to get in somewhere and kind of start this path towards. Yeah, playing the bass in a lot of different ways, but that classical training is kind of a backbone for me for everything that I do. That training was invaluable. It just changed everything about how I understand music and humanity and all of it. It's just that's that thing. That those 4 years were really important.
Briefly explain to me what that means.
Oh, there's a quote from a conductor, Michael Tilson Thomas. He says, classical music, and I think that really it can probably be broadened to just music in general, is so much more than just classical music. By it, we can understand and have a lens to understand humanity. Whereas just when you have something like classical music that has the history behind it, and again, it's not just classical music, because all music of different kinds has history behind it. Right. But there is something that we can learn about who we are as human beings through studying the history of this music and how this music came to be and why we hear things certain ways and what it means. There's a lot there that's and I think that was like what I said when I was 18 years old. I don't think I ever studied a like I never opened a book for a class.
Right.
You know, like genuinely, I don't think I did. I think I just took, you know what I mean? And somehow made it through on my charm. But like I when I was 18 and just started like hearing people talk about this music that I had this experience with, then I actually wanted to learn. Then I wanted to understand like where's this coming from, and trying to understand not only like where's this coming from the composer, but like performing it in different ways, and like trying to understand how, as a bass player in whatever year that was, 2007 through 2011 when I was in school. Wow. Yeah, that like trying to, it felt like this almost like responsibility of like a carrying on of a tradition that felt like it meant something, you know. Whereas, you know, which I still love metal.
Yeah.
You know, there's still a lot of it, that genre that I genuinely love and will listen to regularly. But yeah, there was something that changed for me about music in total because of my exposure to classical music.
What is it about human beings that when we have like kind of a breakthrough moment, or even like a moment where you experience music in a deep way, that you're like, oh my gosh, I want to create that. What is that? Create, or even be around it, or listen to it more. What is that? Is that like, is the music connects us into something up that we didn't even know that needed to be connected? Is that what it is? I don't know.
I think it's, yeah, there's a couple of things that come to mind when you say that. And I think it is about, you know, there's way smarter people than me that have studied the human body, that have studied many other things, that have studied social sciences and done way more than me. So I think purely from a creative standpoint, I'll take aim at this question. But like, there's something about imagination that is inherently human. Like there's something about it that, to live life without imagination is like to not live. This is depicted in all sorts of movies where, you know, it's like you're in an office and there's nothing, and it feels dark and beige, and not like, it feels like there's nothing there, and like there is just something in us that moves us to imagination. Like you're right. Like we have to utilize our imaginations just as a part of being what we are as human beings. But the other piece of it is that I think that there's something that's attached to, there's kind of like a mantra that I've learned. I didn't start with this, but a mantra that I've had about creativity is that creativity can't be severed from relationships. There is something about creativity as a whole, and not just like creativity as self-expression, though that's certainly like a piece of what's happening when we make things. Like you can't really detach yourself from these things like that. Yes, you are, it is self-expression, but even beyond that, like all art forms are collaborative and relational in nature. And I think that that's the piece that's like, whether we realize it or not, like there is something that's pushing us there. We want to meaningfully connect with other people. We want to have genuine experiences with other people. And I think that the arts do that in a way that is very specific and very, I think open-ended, and just, it's like you have to utilize your imagination to participate it. But once you do that, there's kind of like an unending, like there's so much more, you know. It's like you can look under and see, oh my goodness, there's way more down here. There's way more under that than what I had thought. So relationships, there's something I think about creativity that gets us to realize that me making something has an effect on how I relate to other people. Even for like the classical musician that spends 6, 7, 8 hours a day in a practice room by themselves.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Where it's just like,
I thought about that.
There's definitely some effects that has on you socially. You know, it's like it's a lot of classical musicians. Yeah.
But then you find like anybody can relate when you hear that music that came out of that
Mhm.
8-hour session of being by yourself.
Yes.
Like that to me is like the most powerful thing. Like you hear like Beethoven going on a walk and then he hears like some melodies and then he goes and writes. Like I can even not even process that in my head. But
Right.
to think that he can just go and like go in a room and just start writing and real human emotions are being portrayed
Mhm.
where years later anybody can listen to it and be brought to tears or find emotion.
It's incredible. It's
It
incredible.
blows my mind.
It does, yeah, and I mean, yeah, there's so that nature of like what some might call like a gift economy or like an abundance economy, where there's
Mm.
like you have there is meaning in sharing it with someone else. Or like Rick Rubin says about creativity, about being a successful artist, it's like if you've released something,
Yeah.
you're successful, right? It's
Right.
like that is I love that. That's 100. I'm 100% behind that
Same.
statement.
Same.
Yeah, it's just like because there is something so significant to being willing to make something, and then it's like make something is one thing that takes a lot of effort and time, and yeah, like you got a lot to work through on your own end just to make the thing, but to share the thing, that's a whole different level of like what's possible with creativity. And again, it's that we're trying to make meaningful connections with other people. Like that's what we're trying to do as human beings. We want there to be meaning, and so the arts are not immune to that. The arts are very much baked in that. Creativity is very much baked in that, I think.
Hey there, quick pause. If this episode sparked anything for you, even a little, we actually put together a free creative guide to help you go even deeper. It's not homework or a worksheet. It's actually a space to reflect, scribble, and more importantly, reconnect with your creativity in a way that feels gentle and not really overwhelming. You can download it in the description below or in our show notes and use it whenever you need a reminder that you are actually, in fact, a creative person. All right, that's enough. Let's get back to the episode. So, right off the bat, you grew up in an environment where music and creativity is at the forefront, and you kind of just, fish out of the water, but this totally feel normal, and you kind of find the ropes, follow dad, follow mom, go to college, do this thing. Um, at what point did you embrace the identity that you are actually a creative, and what did that look like?
That's a good question. The first thing that popped into my mind was actually like wrestling with whether or not I was a creative.
Okay.
I'll start there.
How did that come
Yeah,
down? What led to that
because I'm
point?
thinking, okay, so my career path is one of the oddest.
I think we all have that in common.
It's strange. It's very odd. But so I went to the Cleveland Institute of Music. I got a degree in double bass performance, which basically the only route as a double bassist is like you get a job at an orchestra. That's the route. You could keep going to school, maybe teach somewhere or whatever, but like the main route for bassists in a conservatory environment where it's classical music is to play in an orchestra. So that's what I've been training for. My senior year of college, I was taking auditions, doing pretty well on them, and then something happened. Graduated after my senior year. Allison and I got married, and we were planning to live here in Cleveland for 1 year while I took auditions around the country, and this was just kind of like home base for 1 year. And something ended up happening to both of us. We just really fell in love with the city, didn't want to leave, and that basically left me like, okay, what does that mean? Like at the time, like most of the bassists in the Cleveland Orchestra were pretty young. It's like I don't even know when an opening is going to happen, let alone if I'll have the opportunity to audition. So it's just like, okay, I guess I need to figure out what it means to be a creative here in Cleveland, just as a freelancer. And I think what ended up happening in those couple of years, there's a few things that made me really question whether or not I was a true creative. Okay, so it was number one. I grew up kind of in a faith tradition that like adjacent. Like I didn't really grow up in specific faith tradition. But when I was 18, I became a Christian, a Protestant Christian, and that was a pretty major piece of it's been a major piece of my life since then. And so that got me. So I was a part of starting a church a few months after I graduated from the Cleveland Institute of Music, and like within a month was on staff in a very small role, like helping with music at this church. And so that kind of like that tension between like making music and like being a part even vocationally of a church, that was one of the rubs, okay, of like, am I actually a creative? And it wasn't necessarily because anyone was saying that there was a tension, but it was just something that I was feeling internally. The second thing that happened was that I think the church job paid like $400 a month or something. You know what I'm saying? Back in 2011, which like that's nothing even in 2011. Okay, like that doesn't make, inflation's not that crazy. Okay, so I was making nothing, and so I'm like, okay, well I got to figure something out here. And basically, I took my freelancing career as a performer mostly, and then also as a teacher in some. I had some private students, and I built a business out of it, where I started like this thing kind of grew and grew. It eventually became a nonprofit, and I realized that I had some like entrepreneurial gifts that I didn't know were there, and I just like really got excited about it. You know, like I was feeling the same kinds of things as I was making a business as I was when I was playing music, and there was something that was happening there that was kind of tapping into something similar. But I didn't see it that way at first. The way that I saw it at first was kind of just like yet another kind of rub against like, am I actually a creative or not? Or like, you know, so like I even remember I was playing in an ensemble. I was probably 23 years old, and this ensemble was incredible. It was an improvisatory ensemble of weird eclectic instruments, and it was a beautiful thing. And I remember being in conversation with the other people in the group at one point of just being like, I just don't know if I like, you know, like I think I was asked to maybe speak about something, and I remember like I don't even remember what was being said, but I remember the feeling of like, I'm not a real artist, so I shouldn't do this. You know what I mean? Even though I'm playing in this group, we're like going on a tour to Thailand and Bangkok. It was like whatever, you know. But I'm like I'm struggling. No, I'm not. And there was just something very that kind of war. I think bubbled up all the way to when I was about 30. So this was kind of like between that lasted a long time. And that kind of internal war about like, who am I? What am I doing? What do I want to be doing? How am I spending my time? Am I excited about spending my time this way? Like all of it was just a bit of a mess, all while doing things that I loved, by the way. So like still a part of this wonderful community, like this incredible church that I was a part of that I genuinely loved, and continuing to make music in beautiful ways. Like lots of wonderful things are happening in those years, but there was just a kind of internal struggle. And when I was 30, that was when I was like, okay. It was just before COVID, so the timing was hilarious because then COVID, I really had like the space, like forced space and time to think through this, you know. But it was just before COVID that I had this kind of existential like, I don't know if do I have a musical voice? I was just like, do I have one? And of course I did, but I genuinely didn't know. Or like, if I were to release music in my name, what would that sound like? I don't even know. I don't, because an important part of my like just being a musician has been like this relational and collaborative thing. And like I'm a bass player, and bass players tend to be these kind of like supporters and make everybody else sound great, right? And I'm into that. That never really went away. But like there was this question of what is my voice? And so it sent me on a crazy path of I can't even tell you how I ended up there, but I started getting deeply into analog synthesizers, and I formalized a home studio for the first time.
Dude, I saw your video.
It's so dope. It's funny because like that was never a part of my professional life. Even though I had recording chops, I grew up in a studio and still like had some gear and stuff, but I never like did that as a thing. You know, and I was never really taking it very seriously. So it's just like that. Then COVID hit, and then that was basically the only question I was asking at that point. It's just like, what do I want to make here? What do I want to, you know? And the recorded medium became like a totally different like subset of my professional career, where I think the way that I was thinking, I had spent so many years just performing that I think that I had like relegated recording as a medium to just capturing performance and not its own medium, you know? And there was something about that just like clicked for me. I think I was actually watching a documentary that Sir George Martin produced the Beatles. Like before he passed, he had this documentary. I can't remember what it's called right now.
I know what you're talking about.
It's great. And like I was like, oh wait, this is its own thing. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, duh. But like like I never thought about it as something for me, like a canvas for me to paint on. I never thought of it like that. I'm a performer. I collaborate with musicians. That's who I am. That's what I do. But you know, I had these recording chops, and so I just started making stuff. I just started exploring sound, exploring synthesizers. Man, they blew me apart. I couldn't believe what they did.
Dude, that's how I feel watching your videos on YouTube. Like, what is happening?
They're amazing. It's just that, and like the idea, you know, there's the kind of the old saying of just like, you know, if you are very, like, you don't really understand something about how you do something until you have to teach it to someone else. That's kind of what synthesizers did for me. It was just like, I thought that I had like, you know, some things figured out with sound and how I experience sound and what, but like to recreate things with voltages and metal and not just like, and like, there's a whole world that I didn't understand, and it really, like, it just got me so excited. And so I started making a lot of, it started with just experimenting with sound, and then I started posting on Instagram, and that led me to just meet a bunch of really interesting people. Like, this was all during COVID when we're all still at our houses, you know, and we're just like, I started doing some work for some companies of like people that were sending me some synthesizers or pedals or other microphones or whatever, and it's just kind of like a thing. Like, I wasn't really planning on being an influencer, but it's like, sure, if you want to send me that, I'll look at it while the camera's on. Like, I don't know, but then it became like, oh, here's an opportunity. Like, hey, can you compose a record for me? Like, can you compose a record for this like licensing library? Sure. What do you mean? Like, what does that look like? It's like, well, it looks like you compose 10 tracks. I pay you this up front, and then you keep the writer's share, and you can make royalties on it. It's like, okay, that sounds cool. Like, I'm going to start doing that. So I started doing that. And then I started meeting more and more people that, like, with my sensibilities of being in the jazz and classical worlds, like, people that had those sensibilities, but were also really interested in synthesizers. I found film composers. I found media composers. Like, that was how I accidentally got into that world of media companies.
That was accidental?
Oh, 100%. Like, that was just me exploring synthesizers and like finding a community there. Like, that was not, I wasn't setting out to be like, oh, I want to compose for different medias, or, oh, I want to, you know what I mean? It's like, that's not at all how it happened. It's just kind of, I was really excited about synthesizers, and I just started sharing that with people. that was all it was. And then I ended up making some really neat connections with other composers and other people in the film and television worlds. And yeah, man, that led to a whole other part of my career where I am now, which is a very different place.
Wow. So where you stand now, how do you identify yourself, and how do you see creativity now?
It's a really good question. Okay, so Well, I think that there has been, while I'll never just be like, and now I'm fixed. It's like now I have no more internal struggle. It's like no. That's all still there. I think I have some experience now that informs that. I think I have some better tools and thoughts about that internal war, and I think that's led me to kind of. I think I lived my life in these kind of segments of like, okay, here is I became a pastor when I was 25. Right. Okay, I was very young, by the way, which that shouldn't have happened, but that's okay. I became a minister when I was 25, and so that's also when at that point I went full time at the church. Okay, so I had that kind of segment of my life. And then I had my kind of everything else, freelancing, playing in orchestras, just performing in different ways, whatever. And then when all of this started happening, and now I had this kind of third thing of like recording, producing, composing, like this is a different thing. Those three worlds were very separate from each other. And I think I had this intense pull to figure out how to just be who I am in all of these spaces, So it's like, I'm still very much figuring out how to do that. Yeah. You know what I mean? But like the space that we're in right now, in a lot of ways, is a representation of that. This is not my space. This is a space that belongs to a community of people that made something insanely beautiful. This is a church community that owns this old historic theater on the east side of Cleveland. And we had this big vacant room that's been vacant since the church had bought it over 10 years ago. And we raised some money, renovated it. And I was asked to be a part of designing the acoustics of this room. And while we were doing that, and it just so happened that the guy that was my partner in this, who's a dear friend of mine, incredible architectural designer, Ben Herring, the two of us were, I mentioned him to you. Yeah, you need to talk. You need to talk to that dude. Smartest guy I know. But he was on this project with me, and he was leading the project. He was designing the project. He was the main designer for the space. And to get to be around him, to get to be in a space where all we were doing was imagining what could be, I was specifically thinking of the angle of like what could be possible in here acoustically. We were asking questions from the church's perspective that was really interesting, because it was like, one Sunday for that church, for our church would be like, you could be completely a cappella, and the next week could be like a 12-piece band. And it's like, we want a space that you can kind of do both of those things and it works. And so while that was like our starting point. While we were doing that, we've had 10 years as a church congregation being in this building, wishing that we had a clearer idea of how we could utilize these spaces from Monday to Saturday. And so we just started dreaming about that. What's possible here? What could we do in these spaces that would be a genuine benefit to our community? And the things that I was seeing was, that was right at the time when we were designing this space. It was right at the time that I was meeting all these film composers and people. I was just like, well, wait a second. Like, a lot of these composers, they don't have access to live musicians. Cleveland, that's like that was what my business was in my 20s, was working with musicians and getting them opportunities to perform and teach and stuff. So like, what if we could utilize this space as kind of a creative center to help to be a part of the creative scene in Cleveland, which is incredible, but also to be a part of like bringing work from outside of Cleveland into Cleveland, saying like, what's the missing link between, like, I've sat in on multiple sessions in LA and in other places, and it's like, I know the players in Cleveland. I know that they can hang. Like these orchestral players are as good as anybody else in the world. It's true. So why couldn't we be a part of scoring films, and why couldn't we be a part of recording albums, and why couldn't we, it's like all of that work that exists in other places in LA or New York or Nashville, it's like, why couldn't that exist here? And so that's why we're here today. Like this is the Heights Theater, the church that I'm a part of and I pastor at, meets here on Sunday mornings, and then Monday through Saturday it's managed as a large scale commercial recording studio and a scoring stage. And then I also run a business called Cleveland Scoring that contracts musicians for composers or production companies to be able to score their films for film or television or video games and stuff like that. So that's what I'm doing now. So I'm part-time at the church, I'm part-time doing freelancing, and I'm part-time running this business, and it's wild. And I'm still figuring out how to make it all work.
Right.
Yeah. It's fun.
And so, how do you define yourself as a creator?
Dang.
You
That's
said a
what you
lot.
asked.
It's
Yeah.
okay. No. It's okay, because I think this is why I like the process of watching you do it.
It's a good question. Yeah, I'm gonna have to dial that down. Let's see, or like boil that down. Okay, at its core, again, this kind of mantra that I mentioned before, I came up with that mantra when I was like 24 or 25. I caught a little bit of something that was significant inspiration for me. Creativity cannot be severed from relationships. I caught onto something early on then. And I think now that's still the fuel that's behind everything for me. Okay, so it's like, if I'm thinking about getting 30 musicians into this space to record a score for somebody, really what's underneath that creative process is my genuine care for those 30 people. Those are my friends, and I want to get them meaningful work. Or like, there's just figuring out for me. A good friend of mine once told me that like my like superpower or whatever is just like being able to inspire and get people together in a space, right? And so it's like, I think that that's a piece of really whatever it is that I'm doing, is that I want meaningful connection with other people, and I want other people to have meaningful connections with each other, and like that kind of space. I'll just give an example. Okay, so how do I identify as a creative? I identify as what? Boil that down for me, bro. A creative socialite, a creative. It's like a social creative, let's say. How about that?
Right.
A social creative. Where it's like, yeah, what's underneath everything for me is this meaningful connection to each other as humans. An example of that was in this space, one of my heroes is a bass player named Esperanza Spalding. Incredible. I love her very much. Her music is incredible. And she's an incredible bassist. She was taught by one of my mentors as well, who lives right up the road from here, Jamie Haddad, as a percussionist. Paul Simon's percussionist, and everybody else in the world. He's incredible, legend. And he knew that I had been getting this space with a lot of other people, getting the space up and running. And he was like, hey, Esperanza's in town. I think we should do something at your place, right? So it's like, okay, whatever it is, I'm down. You know what I mean? Like, let's figure that out. But what ended up happening was just like, they asked us to kind of just get a handful of people, like less than 100 people in the room, while Esperanza like workshopped some ideas with a few dancers and a few other musicians. It was incredible. It was just like, there was no tickets, there was no money being made by anybody, there was no anything. But I had this moment where I looked around and I saw a bunch of people from my church. I saw a bunch of people from the Cleveland Orchestra. I saw a bunch of people from the jazz scene. I saw a couple of producers that have like 30 Grammys between the two of them. I saw like my children. I saw, you know what I mean? And just like, okay, here's like, this event is not about me, but I see my work. I see myself here. You know what I mean? Where it's like, this is meaningful. And what was happening that evening was an incredible evening where everybody that was there got to experience something that was like truly significant for them, but they were totally different kinds of people. So like bringing those kinds of people together, I think that's probably what's underneath everything for me. It's just, and that includes like even genre too, like putting an electronic musician and a classical musician together. I get a thrill out of that, like nothing else. You know what I mean? It's just like that. I just love it because I value both so much. And I desperately want them to value each other. So it's like, I think that you would, if you were in a room together, who's going to be the one that puts you in a room together? That's what I do.
I don't know if you ever saw us, but earlier in the podcast, we had our good friend Caleb and two other musicians and my
I did see that. Yeah.
yeah. And that was one of those things
Mhm.
where we just got together. I was gonna have them as guests, but I'm like, I don't have much to talk about. So let's make something to talk about. And we did. And that was the moment I recognized, like, whoa, the genre of music that came out of it recently, my friend of mine called it atmospheric fusion music, world
Love
fusion.
it. Yeah, there you go.
And I was
There you
like,
go.
that's a new genre.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. It's good. Fantastic.
And it has completely blown away because like we all come together and sit down and
Mhm.
play from our influences, play from where we come from,
Mhm.
the tunes that we know and the instruments that we
Mhm.
know, and it's just this concoction of what is this,
Mhm.
you know. So that's cool because it sounds like that young boy who wanted to be part of the metal group and all of those things. He's doing the same thing because he's like, dude, this stuff is so much fun and I connect with these people and we make some cool stuff. And I just want to hang out with these people as much as I can. And if I can pay them on top of that.
Yes, yes. I would really like to pay them.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. That's legit.
One of the things that I try in this podcast, in the interview, is help people understand you.
Mm.
Especially people who don't know. I feel like I can understand you because we have similar backgrounds in so many ways, parallel stories with little nuances. But
Mm.
a person who completely doesn't know you and looks at your life and there's a whole bunch of question marks. I mean, the way I look at it is like you're a very curious person and you're
Mm.
very in tune to your curiosity and you
Mm.
just jump into it like your father did.
Mm.
And your mother is kind of the analytical aspect of
Mm.
you. So people don't tend to understand people like you.
Mm.
So how do you connect with somebody who doesn't understand you that will be able to be like, oh my gosh, that's what drives him?
It's a really good question. If you'd asked me that question 10 years ago, I think I would have thought that it's like, oh, I feel like I can connect with anybody. I think I have learned that that's not the case. It's just like I think for a lot of different reasons. I think my personality can be tricky for some people, and also it's just I think that you're right that there is kind of a strangeness to the way that my life has kind of unfolded. Although I will say, man, there is something about like we're pretty close in age, our generation that's like, yeah, the idea of a career. Like I just I'm not so sure that's a thing anymore. You know?
That is
It's
very
just
true.
like kind
That
of
is
weird. So I don't know. But as far as like things that if you were to spend 3 days just kind of like with me, you know what I mean? Like the sorts of things that you would see, I think most people would be shocked to see what my family life is like. Because so Allison and I we've been together for over 20 years, and it's we've had 5 children. So five is a lot, and most people are just like, you know, like what happened, guys? It's like, well, I could explain, but it was just it's totally genuine for us. Like we loved doing what we've done, like having as many kids as we have, and like our home life is wild and loud and there's so much going on, but like it's just it's my fuel, man. Like I genuinely love being around my family, and like, you know, it's tough when a lot of my time is like not with them. So it's like it's an odd thing to like. I am genuine when I say that I want to care more about my kids than I care about the stuff that I make. I genuinely like believe that. Sometimes it's hard to practice that, and sometimes it's hard to like even say like, do you really? You know, and it's fair, but especially when you get deep into a project, you know, where it's just like I can't do anything except finish this thing right now, and like I think people. My family has a hard time understanding that at times, and so do I. And I don't even necessarily mean to do that when I get into these parts of projects. But yeah, I would say that like that's, even though certainly not a lot of people can relate to having as large of a family, I think the connection that I have with them, like we do a lot of creative things together, certainly, and we have like, they're all insanely beautiful creatives on their own, but like we're just a family, like we just eat dinner together, and we just like wake up in the mornings and hang, it's like, and it's just like normal life, so I feel like that's kind of underneath everything for me, is like that's a core for me that keeps pushing me to do what I'm doing. So
Final area about creativity. You talked about a lot about creativity and collaboration. That's like forefront.
yeah, yeah, no doubt.
Where does creativity fit inside you, like personally, in your personal growth? Like, how do you look at creativity with healing and things like that? Creativity as a superpower.
Yeah, all right. Give me a minute and let me think of a real answer to that beautiful question. I don't think that I could have known that creativity could have anything to do with healing until I knew that I needed healing. So
Fair enough.
I certainly had these existential experiences with creativity all through my life. Like I can remember very significant moments of listening to a performance or performing this, or, it's like I have these moments where, I talk about this regardless of a faith background or whatever. It's just like it's a moment of the transcendent. It's a moment of this sublime, this thing that's like I feel like what's happening right now in my experience matters. I had plenty of that throughout, like up through my 20s, but like personal healing and creativity. Yeah, I don't think that I could have known what was inside of me until I was ready to face it. I think both Allison and I had the privilege of being able to like really start digging into ourselves and understanding ourselves and working with other people, and I think, yeah, I think I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was very surprised by what was possible with music as I was kind of going. I described 2021 as the year where I learned more about myself than I would have cared to, and that was like very much facing myself, and that work's not done. But
Why 2021? What happened there? Because I mean, you've been creating all your life. So what happened there?
yeah, man, I think there was a number of things that converged at the same time. We were building this space for one, and 1 week after opening this space to the public, there was a sprinkler malfunction that destroyed the space and set us back another year. So like that was the like push, and then everything else was the tumbling. It was just like, oh man, on one level, it's like, okay, so what? A sprinkler pipe burst to the building. It's like, no, bro. Like, I have been in this room for the last 8 months, 30 hours a week, putting these acoustic panels together, building this, you know what I mean? It's like, and it wasn't just like the physical space. It was everything that I thought I was building towards something that I was so excited about, and just like something like that happens. And then, yeah, I think like far more than just like this space like imploding. It was like I imploded and needed to look at myself.
Wow.
And had to like face what I was seeing. There was some stuff that came out of me at that point that I genuinely just didn't even know was there. Stuff that happened to me when I was a kid, and stuff that was just like, what? Like, I've heard other people talk like this, but it was like, whatever, it's fine. But it wasn't fine. And I was a mess, and I still am a mess. I'm still very much working through it. But like that led me a composition that I wrote and recorded last year, and finally now in the next couple months releasing. Because making it is one thing, sharing it is another thing. Okay. But like this composition called Mourn is a chamber piece that incorporated synthesizers and a small chamber ensemble of classical musicians. And I worked on that thing for 3 years. 3 years, where it just uh, it's a 25 minute piece. You know,
Wow.
you know what I mean? It's just like it could have been written in 5 days.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like it took me 3 years to labor through that process of connecting what I was dealing with personally to making something. That was never something I'd really done before. And it was, yeah, I think it was healing, seeking healing for the newfound things that I was dealing with. It was almost as though I needed to revert back to what it was like for me to be a kid, and just like knee-jerk reaction, I make things, I play music, like I can, you know, just that feels more natural than talking. It still does, to be honest. Like it's still like I have more words now than I used to.
Right.
But like I still, that's still my most like base language, and my base where I am is playing music. And so yeah, to actually utilize that in such a way that I'm connecting my personal life into it. And that's kind of what I was trying to say when I was a kid, and kind of just like mindlessly doing things, you know, mindlessly playing a guitar, mindlessly playing like, and maybe even playing at a high level, whatever, it didn't really matter. It's just, the point was that I didn't know what I was doing or what the significance was or whatever. And so to kind of like relearn all of that language and all of that comfortability with music and sound, to do something else, like to be a part of a healing process. Yeah, man, I'm still learning. It's a great question, and there's a lot there for sure.
Can somebody proactively do that?
I think that somebody can proactively prepare themselves for the moment that they have to face themselves better than I did. Yes. So I
Sorry, I
don't
should have
think.
been more clear.
Okay.
When I said should somebody be proactively doing that, is asking those questions about yourself, and it's a totally leading question, because I truly believe creating is a way to heal.
Yeah.
And the more people create alone, that process, the flow state, kind of does the counseling for you.
I will answer that by saying I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have that. So yes.
Fair enough.
Absolutely.
Fair enough.
Absolutely.
I think finally, my story, and I think a lot of creatives don't get to come from the, I call it, you said
100%
yourself, right?
privilege. Yes.
Privileged background.
100%. It's okay.
So that means that I find a lot of us going through the hustle and the struggle of finding, forget the creative voice, just the fact that their identity of identity as a creative, right?
Yep.
So a lot of people stuck in jobs that they're not supposed to be in,
Totally.
like feeling completely stuck, or imposter syndrome, or whatever the case might be. Because I'm the same way. Like
Sure.
I played the piano since I was 5 years old, but I never thought of myself as a musician, right? And finally, like I'm at a point, because of my collaboration, that I found like, oh my gosh, there's something here. Like you said, like my piano, the way I speak, the way I play this, I'm speaking, I'm conveying emotions to, like, now, like, okay, I need to start working on my music. I want to know what that looks like, all that kinds of stuff. So to people like that, what do you have to say?
Yeah, man. All of life requires imagination, and that those like barriers that we create for ourselves, the segments that we create out of our lives of like, this is creative work and this is not. Man, I mean, look, I understand being in a job that you don't like. That's, you know, I don't mean to say stick it out and just do it. It's like, no, I say go find a better job if you need a better job. But like, we make these decisions about what is like, what has value, what has significance. Whereas like, you know, I'm still trying to learn. I don't have this yet, but like, significance is everywhere. It's in every part of your life, and it requires your imagination to be able to see that significance and live imaginatively. Like that is, regardless of what your vocation is or how you choose to pay your bills or whatever. Like, first of all, always making time for music, because look, it's like, even in my case where I live off of the income that I make from being a creative primarily, like that's where the majority of my income comes from. It's still hard to find those moments where it just feels like you're purely making art. Okay. Like you still have to fight for that. It's like, it's not like changing your job and doing this all of a sudden makes it like, oh, now I get to do what I really, it's like, no, you don't. You got to figure out now how to pay your bills with creative work. Right. Good luck. It's like, that's a different thing. It's like, I have 5 children, bro. You know what that means? That means I take gigs and I hustle. Okay.
Right. Because you do. Yeah.
Yes, I have to. But so it's like that, we've made a decision. And I do think that part of that is cultural too. It's just like, we've made the decision that like, if we are full-time artists, then we're real artists. And that's just silly. I mean, it's just like, that's not like, it's not historically true. It's not like, some of the greatest artists that I can think of throughout history, bivocational at best, if not tri, or, it's like, there are incredible people making incredible things all over the place, and how they pay their bills that is not the question. Like, nobody should care about that.
Yeah, because I've lately heard, like, especially for a creative, your day-to-day job is the side hustle.
Right. Yeah.
The creativity is actually, that's what.
And again, it's still playing into the same problem where it's just like, you're still making these segments as though like one's significant and one's not. Exactly. It's like, it's not that way. There's significance in both places,
Right.
Yeah. And there's creative work to be done. Like if you feel dry creatively, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to leave what you're doing in order to tap into that. It's like, no, every space of your life needs creativity. It needs it. So, yeah.
I've come to a point where I look at creativity and I have multiple ways I can create. Woodworking, video, music, and it's anything else.
Totally.
Dogs. I watch dogs at home. So that's become like a huge thing for me. So I have like 4 things I'm doing apart from other things that I want to do. Yeah. The question is, when a world is telling you to focus and niche down.
Oh, we're going to go there.
I figured I should finish it off in the proper way. What do you say?
Well, obviously, I don't live by that. It's just, that sucks. I'm mad at you for asking that. Yeah, because that's probably right. I don't know.
Should I talk to your wife and get a better understanding?
Yeah, maybe, right? Yeah, you probably should niche down, just so that you don't make dumb decisions and try to do everything. But no, someone told me a story about Steve Martin once, the actor Steve Martin. He's like, I'm an okay actor, I'm an okay comedian, and I'm an okay banjo player. But nobody is all 3 of those things. Yeah. You know what I mean? And there's Steve Martin. That's who we have today. He is who he is. And that's like, now look, you can overblow that and just, there is absolutely a way of oversaturating yourself and being like, I can do everything.
Burnout.
You can't. You can't do everything. I need to retell this to myself every other day. It's just like, no, just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. That's a really hard lesson to learn for people that grew up like me, who can do lots of different things, and it's fun and you like all of it. Like I do like all of it. And it's hard to say no to all of it. So I think in the sense of like structuring your time and being a good like steward of your time and looking at it and trying to make good decisions with what you actually can do. In my 20s, I'd be like, I can do it all. My 30s, I'm just like, I can't do it all, but I still really want to, It's like, I know that I can't, but I'm not like, I haven't figured out how to say no yet, So it's like, if you can do that to me, but I totally I am not down for like niching down if that means denying a piece of who you are genuinely. Like this is an important part. You know what I mean? It's like, I want to just say no just for the sake of like trying to be really, really good at this one thing. It's like, I mean, yeah, I think for some people they'll need to do that in order to be, you know, LeBron James probably could have been the greatest tight end in the world. He wasn't.
Right.
He was one of the greatest basketball players in the world, right? And it's just like some people to have like this hyper excellence in one particular thing, they probably do need to say no to way more than what I've said no to in my life. But again, if my goal is connecting with others meaningfully through creativity, that means I could probably do that in a few different ways. You know what I mean? Like it's a broader goal.
It sounds like the spark will constantly be alive as long as you get to collaborate and do cool stuff.
Yeah, I think so. And that's not to say that self-expression isn't a part of what I do. Like I need to. Yeah. I need expressing myself through creativity is a part of what I'm doing for sure. But I find the ultimate significance in it being shared. Like that is where I, you know, certainly the process, all that matters, yes. But like it being something that matters to more than just.
There's something really healing about it. Like the two of our friends, we don't call us a band, but they lost their mom. She's old, 80s, but that was a week after they lost their mom, and they came to play with us. And we said, sorry, man, for your loss. But I think we were able to say more to each other just by playing and forgetting about that and just like being in there. So every time I looked at those guys as we were playing, there was so much love and like, dude, I'm sorry, but also, wow, this is like powerful music that we're playing type of thing. So I completely agree. I think that's super powerful. When you look back at your life one day, how do you want to be remembered? Your legacy as a creative.
Generous and full of peace. That's how I want to be remembered by other people in these worlds. Like in a creative context. Like there is something that you said about creativity being healing that leads to this like non-anxious presence. That's a word that it's a phrase that we use a lot around here. Good friends of mine use around here. And I want every part of my creative process to be full of that kind of non-anxious presence. You know, it's like, I have nothing to prove. I genuinely love the people around me. I'm at peace with them. And yeah, I just, in a lot of ways, it's like I can look back on what's happened so far and be like, yeah, okay, that could be the trajectory. And then there's a lot of other things that are just like, okay, there's a lot of, I need to keep working at this, man. Because it's just like, oh, it's so easy. It's so easy to get caught up in just the stuff of like fear of failure and fear in general. Just like, you know, not being good enough. My goodness, like that's some of what I needed to face. It was just like, I have to be the best, you know? That was a crazy mindset shift for me when it was like, wait a second, like I came to school to become the best bass player in the world. That is what I needed to be. You know what I mean? And I meant it. Like, and genuinely thought that I could be that. You know, whatever best means, you know what I mean? But like that's how I was operating. And it's just like, yeah, there's enough happened for me that it's just like, no, that's not it. Like that does not lead to peace. That leads to hating the people around me and tearing them down and like being at war with them because it's like it's yeah, man.
Because like you're collaborating with a bunch of unhealthy individuals, including yourself, and then the real creativity doesn't really come out because everybody's not healthy.
Right.
Bunch of
well, yeah, just like even the development of the audition in the classical world was just like you can actually make this a competition, which is just like, okay, I don't have a better solution, but this isn't it. Like this is, you know,
I always
like,
thought about
this is not it. Like, yeah, it's you know. there's inherent problems with just like appointments as well, which is more what it used to be. It was just like call up a teacher at Northwestern in the 50s. Hey, who's your next students? Like obviously there's a problem there as well. But like, man, it just the whole, like there are some crazy stories in that world, man. I'm just like I took an audition in Kansas City during my senior year of college, and I went to the bathroom and left my bass in the dressing room that I was warming up in, and they tuned all the tuning pegs and stuff. It was, it's like I was about to go out. I was like, oh my gosh, guys, it's crazy. It's like that's that. I don't
because of competition?
Yeah, I was about to go out and play an audition, and so they could just mess with my bass a little bit while I was in the bathroom. But like, I don't mean to paint a picture that the whole classical world is like that. There is a lot of that in the classical world, but there's a lot of that in all sorts of music genres where it's just like, at any cost, I need to be viewed as the best, or at any cost, I need to be viewed as important, and it's just like those any costs, like that's what I want. That's like where I want to live. It's like those costs are the things that I want to focus on. So being generous, being kind, being peaceful with the people that I'm making music with, and like, that's, I think, to not be motivated by not be motivated by the things that are very strong around us all the time, that are telling us that you need to be the best, or you need to be whatever. And just living at peace with people. That's what I'd like. But ask me again tomorrow. I don't know.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate this. Thanks for. I think I had some deep questions that I want to get to know. A real shout out to my mother-in-law Denise because she's I don't know how old she is, but she started getting into drawing and painting, and like I'm super proud of you, Mom. It's cool. Thank you, Joel. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure, man.
Appreciate you, man. Killing.
Yeah. Until next time, keep creating, keep dreaming, keep going on your own creative odyssey. Take care. Bye. That's it. We're done. Thank you.
Bravo.
Finally, we did it.
We did it, dude. Appreciate you.
Thank you, man. It was an amazing
conversation.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.